RetroDaze.
In the 80s, nothing was quite as cool as lasers. And I can't say for certain if lasers were everywhere because we loved them so much, or if we loved them so much just because they were everywhere, but there's certainly no denying the pervasive nature of these multicolored bands of light. Heroes and villains brandished laser weapons in cartoons and science fiction movies. T-shirts depicted laser graphics, while school supplies lured you in with eye-popping designs. Pencil boxes, trapper keepers, and folders with lasers were sure to make you the most popular kid in your class. And if you had any street cred at all, you inevitably chose lasers as the background for your school photo. It was only a matter of time before lasers made their way into the toy store. But before that could happen, someone had to invent the technology and prove the rampant popularity of lasers was more than just a flash in the pan. Perhaps unsurprisingly, laser tag began its life in the late 70s as a training tool for the US military called MILES, short for Multiple Integrated Laser Engagement System. That just sort of rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? This precursor to the game we all know and love is much more advanced, employing actual laser technology rather than the infrared tech we'd see in retail games, including tracking and surveillance upgrades for use during simulations. In addition, the hardware could be set to mimic specifics of the weapons being discharged. Soldiers in vehicles were outfitted with receivers that flashed lights and later emitted sounds upon being hit. The readouts of these receivers were also equipped to tell medics what kind of wound they would be dealing with and the best ways to treat it. Over the years, MILES was updated with new features, and the Army continues to use the system, though there are reports that they are finally considering a change. In 1979, around the same time that MILES was implemented, the first ever laser toy using infrared light was released as part of a marketing campaign for Star Trek: The Motion Picture. Though not specifically advertised as laser tag, the Star Trek electronic phaser gun effectively worked as such. The set came with two guns with built-in receivers rather than employing the use of a targeting system attached to your body, as later sets would. The next step in the evolution of laser toys came when the movie Star Wars inspired George Carter III to create a competitive game with similar aesthetics. He explains his epiphany in an interview with 2020 during their segment, What Makes It Hot?
The scene where they're running down the hallways of the ship, shooting the phaser pistols at each other with all the laser beams zapping down the hallways looked like fun. That's the same game I used to play as a kid, hour after hour. The game would always degenerate when I'd say, I got you, and the other kid would say, no, I got you first, and there'd be an argument and the game would end. And I thought, well, we need to put this in some sort of a context and give it rules and keep score.
According to the Dallas Morning News, Carter named the game Photon because his lawyers advised him that laser tag was too generic a trademark. His vision finally manifested on March 28, 1984, when he opened the inaugural Photon Center in Dallas, Texas. The popularity of the Photon Arena exploded. What most assumed would only be popular with video game playing male teens ended up enticing a truly diverse crowd, including older players in their 30s and 40s, parents, business people, and little kids, as long as they were taller than the requisite 4 feet 6 inches. Carter's marketing director reported average earnings of $15,000 to $20,000 a week with little to no advertising. Photon was a hit. Within a year, several more arenas had opened with contracts signed for 70 additional franchises around the country. When the arenas first opened, there was a one-time $3.50 fee to purchase a picture pass, which gave you access to personal game stats, after which 6-minute games cost $3. In that 2020 piece, Barbara Walters describes Photon as a mysterious world built for teens and adults, an adventure game that makes video games come to life. When it's put that way, I don't know how any kid of the 80s could resist. And for anyone on the fence, the sheer spectacle of the equipment, including helmets and battery belts and breastplates and phasers, would tip anyone over the edge. The landscape of a Photon arena was like that of an alien world, with enormous towers, tunnels, and catwalks for players to traverse. The lighting and music, composed by Ken Calais, Fleetwood Mac's main producer and engineer, added an otherworldly ambiance, transporting players to a fantasy playland where they could act out their favorite science fiction ray gun fights. Some media outlets likened it to a Martian disco. The immense popularity of Photon arenas fueled a rapid expansion into other media, and Carter took full advantage. In true 1980s spirit, Carter decided to expand into television with a short-lived show called Photon. Produced by Deke Enterprises, the live-action program followed high schooler Christopher Jarvis as he discovers Photon arenas were actually testing grounds to find the galaxy's greatest warriors. When Jarvis is recruited, he learns the secret phrase which transports him to a space station with other Photon warriors set to defeat the forces of darkness. If this all sounds familiar, it's probably because you've seen the movie The Last Starfighter, which came out 2 years prior to Photon. Carter's feelings about the results correspond with reviews of the time. He described Photon as probably the world's worst semi-animated TV show. And in case you weren't sure what he meant, Carter went on to add, it was terrible. The television show wasn't Carter's only foray into merchandising, though. There were books, lunchboxes, coloring books, Halloween costumes, read-along adventures on cassette tape, action figures, posters, shirts, mugs, a Famicom video game, and self-inking stampers. Wait, hold on. Okay, I'm just checking my notes here because there's no way that... Oh, wait! Here it is, right here. They really did make these things. Photon self-inking stampers for, I don't know, budding notary publics, I guess? The 80s, man. What a time to be alive. Anyway, all this merchandising led inexorably to the home version of Photon, which was released in 1986 by Intertech. Unfortunately, the popularity of Photon hadn't gone unnoticed by other toy manufacturers, and that same year, Worlds of Wonder released their own version called Laser Tag, swapping the letter S with a Z in the word laser, thus circumventing Clark's attorney's original advice to avoid that generic term. Despite the competition, both versions of the game are cited as being popular Christmas items for 1986, though Laser Tag was arguably the more popular of the two. It didn't take long for the new infrared technology to spread to all manner of toys and games, and even though George Carter's Photon Arena started the craze, soon many consumers forgot about Photon completely. By 1989, Carter decided to sell Photon when he could no longer secure financing. A variety of reasons have been cited for the downfall of Photon, including toy gun controversies of the time, a shifting demographic away from adult players, the failure of his television program, and increased competition. Although interest in laser tag home games for children has waned, their heyday arguably being the 80s and 90s, there are still laser toys being manufactured and laser tag arenas in operation till this day. IBISWorld.com lists 1,072 laser tag businesses in operation in the US as of 2023, up from the 10-year low of 899 in 2013. It's safe to say that the advanced form of Capture the Flag will never completely fall into obscurity, and even as children become young adults and interest shifts from laser tag to paintball, something special remains in the alien world of a laser tag arena that many will never tire of. How about you? Did you have a home version of laser tag when you were a kid? And if so, which one? Do you still head out for the occasional lap around the old laser tag arena? Or maybe you invite your kids to experience the joy that you felt when you were younger, strafing through the mist of that futuristic world? I would love to hear about it down in the comments. And if you like our content, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and maybe even enabling that ubiquitous little notification bell. It really makes a huge difference. Let's meet again next week to celebrate yesteryear, right here on RetroDaze.
Clicky clacky.